Yeah. All right. So you don't need any introduction really. If someone clicked on this video, they're gonna know full well who you are. So welcome, Bruce, and thank you so much for taking the time. It's a big honor for me to
Glad
have
to
you
be
here.
here. Yeah.
So yeah, I just wanted to start with basically, when did you start playing guitar? You know, around what time was that, and like your influences, and if you remember, like why you started.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I remember the exact moment. Um, it would be 1979, and it was Kiss on the Dynasty tour with Judas Priest opening up. And obviously, we had one of our moms, I can't remember which one, drive us to the concert and then drop us off there. But at the venue, it was Roberts Stadium in Evansville, Indiana. And at that time, it was still, most of the concerts I went to was a free for all. Who got there first? That's where you got to be.
Oh, so
And
no seating at all. It was just
no seating. No, it was just kind of an open free for all.
yeah.
And I remember I got to be about, I don't know, fourth or fifth row standing, and Judas Priest came on. And I knew within literally like the first couple minutes, like, I want to play guitar. That is awesome. And up until that point, it never even dawned on me. But it really was that, because I had, in that time, 8 tracks and vinyl of, like the Kiss stuff. And I can't remember what else I had. I think Creedence Clearwater Revival and some bands like that. That was sort of like 70s type stuff.
Mhm.
But I definitely had the Kiss stuff. And I mean, after that one concert, that did it. I literally went home and was like, you know what? And it was getting close to the holidays, like sort of where we're at now, almost for myself, it's Christmas time.
Yeah.
And so first order of business, I need a guitar and an amp. And
And your mom was like, "Damn it!"
yeah, I think my dad was like, at least he didn't pick the drums.
Oh yeah.
But, um, but that's what I got. I got a cheap Les Paul copy. I think it was called a Lotus. So it would have been a Japanese sort of Les Paul copy. It had a bolt-on neck, so it was
Yeah.
not the full-blown Les Paul, but it was
I wonder
good.
if the headstock was like sturdier on that one than the real Les Pauls.
Well, it never broke, and it fell a
Yeah.
few times. So maybe there's something to the flex of the bolt-on.
But
But
also that's funny though with the whole Judas Priest thing, considering that's where Scott ended up, right?
I mean, it couldn't be more surreal, really, because when I got in Racer X, Jeff knew Rob
Yeah.
and singer, because they were both from, I believe it was Phoenix, if I'm right, and to be given a song by them to record on the first album you're doing. I mean,
Oh
it was
yeah.
just unbelievable to me. Like, wow, how is this happening? That the first band I saw, the band that got me into music, is now there's this other connection, and I get to record one of their songs. It was really even to this day, a pretty massive honor. So
But also like, and I didn't think about that obviously, but before, but the whole thing that they were also like a twin guitar type of band as well. So it's a
yes.
lot of connections there actually.
Mhm.
That's really
Yeah,
cool.
it was neat, and I've got to meet all of them over the years. So that's been really really awesome, and to see Scott Travis get that gig, which at the time, when Racer X was sort of imploding at the end, and we knew it was all falling apart.
Yeah.
To see him get that gig was like so incredible.
Yeah.
Because we were at the Forum, just mere months later, and here's Painkiller, and they're opening with it, and here's, the guy up on stage, and it was like, wow, this is so cool.
But that was such a wasn't it quite a big departure for them as well, Painkiller, because it was like it's really modern when it came out. It's like really
They
great.
definitely took that hard turn then, which was
Yeah.
a smart move for them, because it
Mm.
really propelled Judas Priest into the 2000s and forward, where they're still a heavy hitting act.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So Judas Priest, that was the first band. What? So how old were you at the time?
13.
Yeah. Well, I think so many
long,
people seem to
long
start.
time ago.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of people started at 13.
Mhm.
So, but when you started, were you like already? Because sometimes people get started and like they get on acoustic, and it's like, what's this? And
Horrible. Yeah.
but you got like straight to the electric guitar. You knew exactly what you wanted to do. So there must have been like a sort of a running start for you, practice wise as well. Then.
It was you got to put yourself in the time frame of 1979, like going into 1980. Um, no internet,
Yeah.
no cell phones. Computers were just starting to make their presence. I think the Apple IIe sort of
Yeah.
vaguely around somewhere in that time. Video games were just starting to show up, and like, wow, there's this thing down at the pizza place. You got to go see it. And When I got it, you were sort of at the mercy of where were you at, location wise.
Yeah.
If you had a good teacher in town or if you had good players. Fortunately for me, I grew up. I was born in Memphis, but grew up in Vincennes, Indiana. So that's really southern Indiana. But
Yeah.
it's also sort of a historical town because it was the first city in Indiana.
Oh, okay.
Um, it wasn't a big city. It was about 18,000 people, which is pretty small. But there, at that point in time, live music was so valuable
Yeah.
because that was the entertainment. I remember what was it? MTV was just starting to show up in bigger cities, because the
Oh, you
smaller
didn't
cities,
you didn't even have it in like it's more. Oh, wow. Okay.
no cable yet. So, it was literally like, rabbit ears on a TV and
Yeah.
just a handful of stations. And fortunately for me, there was places to play everywhere in my hometown, and there was a lot of musicians. And it was also sort of close to Bloomington, so there was a John Mellencamp connection because he was in
Yeah.
Vincennes a lot. So I ended up taking lessons from his bass player,
Oh, okay.
and who was a really good background singer, really good singer in general, but he sang backgrounds on a lot of
Yeah.
the non-camp stuff. I don't think he liked touring, so
Yeah.
he really didn't end up being a touring musician with him. But nonetheless, he wasn't necessarily a guitar player, but he could show me enough to show me like, hey, what's this riff off of the first Def Leppard album? What's this AC/DC riff happening here? And once
Yeah.
I got sort of past the bar chord and he got me into the bar chord and the pentatonic scale, and like, here's how you play Wasted by Def Leppard.
Yeah.
And I started getting sort of that chug,
Yeah.
in coordination. And after that, I started running on my own.
Yeah.
I know I was figuring stuff out about half right. My ear was so. Guitar, there was no one to watch.
Yeah, I think that's the how you that I started in the early 90s, but I mean people who start now, even back when I started, I feel like, oh, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have this, but we had, you had the videos and you had some books and all that stuff, right? But albeit it was like not very popular to be a good guitar player when you start in the beginning of the 90s, so that was a bit of a problem. But for you guys though, when you start, I mean, you had Guitar Player, I guess, but method books wasn't really a thing for guitar. If it wasn't, not Mel Bay stuff, and so I think having a teacher like that, even though he played bass, he probably showed you like, or at least told you like, learn from by listening and like picking things up like that. And it's
He did, and he also sort of mentored me a little bit because they were, I think, probably about 10 years older than me.
yeah,
So there was a group of guys in town that were about 10 years my senior, and he let me sort of go into that group and play with these guys. And from that, I realized also I could hear good vibrato. Oh, well, that sounds really good when he's
yeah,
bending up like that, and it's in the vibrato. And I started noticing it on key players. Like I got one of the first rock records I got was like Michael Schenker,
wow,
the
okay.
Obsession album. So like Hot and Ready right out of the first gate, and I could tell, hey, that's good vibrato and bending right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, the teachers around town, he was the only teacher I had per se. And then it was back then, it was also, I mean, there wasn't even tab, like you would get Guitar Player magazine, but it was all like, you had to really read music in it. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm out, you know? But and it was also at a time, if you knew other local musicians, licks were kind of like gold,
Yeah.
like I'm not giving you my best lick, I could see where Eddie Van Halen would want to turn, when he was
Oh
doing
yeah.
certain licks, so he wouldn't give them away, because at that time it was almost like a currency. If you
Yeah.
had a really good lick, someone with a really good ear who could transcribe solos, I mean, if you knew someone like that, you were made in the shade, or if you had that ability. Um, I didn't, and it was a struggle with records. You had to slow them down so the pitch was an octave lower, and
Yeah.
all your records were in prime shape until it got to the solo, and it was just scratched up mess, but slowly but surely, you would meet other players in town, and you jam with some other people, and you pick stuff off, and like records, you'd sit around with a lot of records or 8 tracks or cassettes, and hammer it out, and yeah, that's pretty much how I started with it all.
But that's the thing, like when back then, doing with a, an actual record and let's say dropping the needle, that that's, it, when I tell students that, they think like, that's crazy. How do you even do that?
I
But
know.
I didn't even do that because I would record it on a cassette at least, and I had CDs and whatever. But it's like that must have been, and also when like, oh, I'm gonna screw this record up as well when I do it. Like there must have been. But I think you learn so much more when you do it that way, though. And also, I think when you jam with people who are better than you, and you see like, oh, that's how you play that lick, and then that unlocks other doors for you, and you can sort of, work your way through other things then. And I think maybe it takes a bit longer than if you get everything served to you, but I think you develop something that a lot of players that I see today that come to me for lessons, where they might, be decent at certain technical stuff and know a lot of scales or whatever, but they're lost if you remove the tab, and if you remove then it's like, what do you mean learn by ear? It's like it's magic to them almost. And I
I,
think it's
I
such a crucial thing.
I have a big appreciation for that era, just for the fact that since I've lived through that and to today's era, um, it seemed like, to me at least, because the information traveled so slowly, if at all,
Yeah.
bootlegs were golden. But since you were really left to figure things out on your own, there seemed like there was a lot more uniqueness, and it would be territorial too. Like certain players would be, influencing people, and they would have no connection to someone across the country in California. They didn't know it. They had to get on a record in order to do that,
Yeah.
and so I think versus today, what I saw back then was it was a lot more likely to have uniquely sounding individuals, as opposed to today. It's a lot easier to have a homogenized sound because
Mm.
everybody is fed instantly all this incredible information, but it's there for everybody, and it shows exactly how to do it. I
Yeah.
think a lot of the inventions were people just like not knowing how to get it and just figuring out, well, that's close enough. Well, now you've got your own lick.
Yeah.
You know, it isn't that. It's not even close. You got
Yeah.
kind of close.
Yeah.
And so it was sort of, almost just doing things. Yeah, I can't get it exactly right, so I'm inventing my own thing.
But how was it for like when we're getting to that as well, like when you got to what year did you go to GIT? Was it like 85, 84?
85, yeah, fall.
85. And when you got to GIT, and I've heard this, and I don't know, maybe people listening to this have heard it as well, but that the first guy you saw was Paul Gilbert play guitar, which must have been like crazy to be
I mean,
like,
you tie in all the things like Judas Priest and everything else, and
yeah,
it just almost felt like I must have thought about it so much and willed it to happen. I
yeah,
don't know, but it was the truth. The first person I met was Paul. And he's coincidentally, the first person I saw play.
yeah,
And I really, it was almost a point where I was like, I knew it. Everybody in California is going to be this good, way ahead of me,
yeah.
and I don't stand a chance. And I remember bumping the guy next to me because it was Racer X, the first album, Incarnation, giving a performance for graduation credits.
Hmm.
So, and the place was packed. Everybody knew, like, wow, he's the guy for metal and rock, and I bumped the guy next to him, and I'm like, how old is this guy? And he goes, 17. And I'm just like, I'm done. I'm finished. I might as well go back to Indiana at this point right now.
But when so you saw him, and that's obviously I've seen this videos out there when he's around that age. I think it's like yeah, you've probably seen them as well, but I know how scary that must have been, and also completely not representable, like
Yeah.
representing the rest of the guitar community. But you didn't know that, obviously. But it's my question though is, what level were you at when you came to GIT? Because you came to GIT in '85 and you joined Race Rex within a year?
Pretty quick, yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't make it. I didn't make it through the whole year course, so it was a
yeah.
little bit. Um,
So you must have been at quite a high. I mean, I'm sure you developed like crazy, but you still must have had a good level, even after like
well,
what 6 years of playing.
I had about 6 years in Indiana, and in that time, my band did well in Indiana. My original band, we did some covers and we would play clubs. Um, so I was, advanced enough to do 3 or 4 sets of music, and
What
then
type of
before
songs did you do in
it
the
was
band, like
it was
covers?
top 40. It was a
Yeah,
lot of some stuff that you weren't really super looking forward to, but I was getting paid to play clubs in high
yeah,
school. That was my weekly job. I made more money at that than picking apples at the orchard.
yeah,
So, and it
pretty
was a
cool.
lot more fun. So, but when I got to GIT, um, I didn't have the like the Meola style picking that Paul
Yeah.
had, and he also had that really just over the top hammer on pull off stuff.
Mm.
He really, it was a couple licks that he was just really good at. And
Yeah.
early Paul Gilbert, we've seen the videos. I like that era of Paul Gilbert. I have some cassette tapes somewhere from the open counselings, but it was such a raw, testosterone driven, you're 17,
Yeah.
and it feels good to play accurate and fast like that. And obviously the guy was, you know, leaps and bounds ahead of the normal crowd of guitar players. And
And he
and
hadn't
really
he hadn't hadn't changed his picking yet then either,
no.
right?
And that's kind of a funny thing later on because I was traditional and he was up, and then at the end of the day, I'm switched to up and he's traditional. So go figure. But um, I would say the things that got me the gig in front of Paul is the best way to sort of describe what I could do.
Yeah.
I had good bending and vibrato. That was the one thing I could hear as a kid and emulate because it wasn't a bunch of notes. It was just
Yeah.
one note and you had to make it sing.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, too, there was a song by Journey
Yeah.
called Majestic. And I didn't know this, but that's where that was the first time I really heard vibrato and said, I like this. And it's real easy to play, so it's easy to figure out. I needed things that were easy to figure out,
Yeah.
and it happened to be that was one of the things that Paul learned his vibrato from too. And
Oh,
so we had some weird, oddly like connections, and I didn't even talk about it with him. But when I sat in the room the first time, because he was my private instructor, so once a week I would go to his thing at the end of the day, which is another sort of the part of the story is we would walk back to our apartments together. So I made friends with him because I had the last
yeah,
lesson of,
yeah, yeah.
and we lived in the same area.
Where
You
did
know,
you live, by the way? Because I was a student there as well, so I know the area a bit.
I was on Orange,
Yeah,
so
over there.
right next to the Man's Theater,
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
and his apartment was on the, I think Sycamore, was it the next one back? I can't
Yeah, I
remember.
had a bunch of friends living in La Brea. I lived on Hawthorne for a while,
Yeah,
and yeah, it's also but all that area. But this was the school in the because when I went there, it was like in the building
the
on the
new
same
school.
street as the site. It was a new school
Yeah,
spot.
we went to
Okay,
the old school. We were at the old one
yeah,
still.
yeah, okay. So where was that in comparison to the new one?
The old one was right on Hollywood Boulevard, above the
Okay.
Hollywood Wax Museum.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, and it was, talk about a death trap up there. Really narrow hallways. I mean, it was just like if a fire broke out, it would have been disastrous. But it was a cool place, really
Yeah,
fun time. But when I met him, I had good vibrato, and that was the first thing he noticed. He goes, "Wow, you got good vibrato and bending." And that was something that he really liked. And I'm sure that he saw a lot of people that didn't,
yeah,
because that is a thing after teaching for, 40 some years. It's, a thing a lot of people don't really work on sometimes. And it's like, that's one of your most valuable things
yeah.
in your bag of playing.
Yeah, but because it's such a thing, right? Where like a cliche almost, where someone like rips a really fast run and then the end of the note, and it's like, what happened here? It's like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like then it doesn't really matter what happened before because no one's gonna
Yeah.
care really.
You just had to finish on a strong, yeah.
Exactly, but nope. But all right. So you started studying with Paul, yeah, but he wasn't. So he was graduating then when you saw him, or was it
He had
just a
just
graduate?
graduated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So
And
what type of stuff did you work with, with him? Like, was it straight into picking stuff, or what did you do?
pretty much, I mean, I was like, there was three things that were new to me that I'd never seen in person. And I probably did. I probably saw it on like Hee Haw or something like
Yeah.
that, because some of those dudes back then were like in
Oh,
the
yeah, yeah,
70s,
they're amazing.
they were sweeping. And but it wasn't in the metal thing. So I didn't
Yeah.
hear it like until right before I left for LA. I mean, literally just a couple weeks. I heard the Ingve Alcatraz live show on King Biscuit Flower Hour. And
Was
I
that the first
heard
time
the
you heard Ingve as well?
first time I heard
Oh,
Ingve,
wow.
and
Okay.
I'm like, oh wow. And what is that? I
Yeah.
just I couldn't really picture it at first. And then so I saw Paul do that, and he showed me a sweep, and he showed me the Meola picking lick, and he showed me the hammer on pull off lick. And those were the three like big things for Street Lethal if you listen to it. I mean, he had
Oh,
some
yeah, yeah.
two-hand things and stuff, but it was that one hammer on pull off lick, and then that one
Hmm.
fast, Demiola style picking thing. And man, I went after those things hard. I'm like, I went back to I went back to my apartment when the metronome was coming out. And yeah, it didn't take long. Once I saw how to do it, was the
Yeah.
thing. It's like, oh, okay, that's how you do it, and that's how you shift, and
Yeah.
that's how you do the shift on the hammer on pull off, and here's how the sweep mechanics work. And oddly enough, and this was sort of a bummer type thing for me at first, but in Indiana, I economy picked descending, and I alternate picked ascending. So
Oh.
when Paul saw my pick hand, he goes, you picked two different ways. And I was just like, oh, the worst. And but the sort of side thing to that was sweeping. I could sweep the first day he showed me. It was like, oh,
Wow.
this is easy. Well, because I had an economy thing
Yeah.
already motion working in, it was like within a week, I had all these sweep things down, and I was brooming the floor at MI.
But you can tell on like in your live solos, by the way, for example. First of all, your vibrato when you start getting into the blues thing, that was also like, you know, amazing when I heard it the first time, because for whatever reason, the first Razor X album I had or borrowed was the live one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that still sounds great to me today.
Yeah.
I think it sounds, you know, yeah, it's amazing. And I'm talking even about the audio quality here. I'm not just talking about the playing is amazing, obviously, but I remember that, like, when you had your solo, it was like, all right, this is legit stuff. And also you can tell that it makes so much sense when you talk about the sweep picking, because you have way more of that Gambale type sweeping going on, and then Paul and yeah, and that's another thing, and I won't say so I don't forget about it, but a lot of like twin guitar bands, right? It tends to be two guys that are good, but there's usually this like one guy who does the heavy lifting, right? That's a bit better. But I never got that feel with Razor X. Like you both did what you needed to do for the harmonies and all that stuff, but then you complemented each other. Like each had your own strength, and I think that's what makes it so cool as well. It wasn't like, you know, also I didn't get the sense that you were competing. It was just like, you know, having fun playing, and you both are amazing in you know, your own particular way. So but anyway, I don't want to lose this practicing thing, because that's really interesting. So when you, I think having three things like that is perfect, because then you don't get overwhelmed.
But I remember the picking lick thinking, like, how am I ever going to get to that tempo? Because I couldn't get past the awkward, I haven't done this lick ever kind of feel. And the metronome, it's like, the sync would go off once you try to bump it up. And then finally there was just, that one was probably the one that took the longest. It took a few weeks. But there was a point where
that's still something like I kind of want to reach out and slap you. It took a couple of weeks. People struggle with that for years. Like, oh no.
Well, it was going that way with me. I couldn't get it, and it was probably week 3, and I approached it without the metronome, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to start trying to gun it all day. And I won't do it all for an hour straight, but I'm going to try gunning it for a while, then come back to it. And I finally got it to do that, where you get that accent. And once I got that, it was like, oh, I see how you get the speed. It's more of like, almost feels like a twitch. Like and once I broke the barrier on that, then I was ready to go to the open counseling. It's like, hey man, put me in, coach. I'm ready to play.
But did Paul have anything, like, besides like, oh, here's the lick, or did he give you any type of idea on how to practice it, or like any sort of schedule for you, or was it like, yeah, here, go practice?
I'm sure he did. I mean, we talked a lot in our, it was a half-hour open counseling session, private count. So we talked a lot, and he was an excellent teacher, and playing in a band with him, dude was super generous on, here, you take that solo, or you have this part. He was very, very generous. And even when he handed me Street Lethal album and said, hey man, thinking about adding another guitar player, go learn this. And I'm like, really? Go learn this? But he was super nice, because I would come back with what I could get. And he goes, oh, that's not right. It's hard to hear on the album. Here's what it really is. And so he would always like kind of let you off the hook too. Like, it was never like, can't you hear? It was always, oh no, that one's kind of buried in the mix. This is what we need to do here.
But I think like if you have like, I don't know, 70-80% of it down, and the form of the song, and then because I think that he doesn't need to sit there like, go here. You can just change it on the fly, basically, and then well, maybe you need to practice it a lot more or whatever. But still, it's so couple of weeks. Oh my god! Anyway, that's so crazy. But I do think being in that environment, and since I went to JIT myself, and there's something special that happens when you're around really good players. and you see it in front of you. So I mean, was TJ Helmerich there when you were there at all?
Oh
You know
yeah, he was there when I came back to MI to teach.
yeah,
Like him and Brett Garsed were a few
yeah,
years after me.
yeah.
But when I got there, we had Gambale
Oh my God,
and Scott
come on.
Henderson and who else? Well, we had a lot of people that would come in for guests. Like Joe Pass came in quite a few times,
Yeah,
and it was like, wow. You know, we had the standbys too. Dan Gilbert, which I thought
yeah,
was he always had the funnest class
yeah,
because
yeah. I had him in single string. He was the
single
greatest.
string technique
Yeah,
where you would
yeah,
do that following
yeah,
through the course. That was
yeah,
always like a highlight course because it was a fun course. He was a
yeah,
fun guy to teach. He taught real well and great player. But yeah, had some good players. And you're right. There is something special about sitting in front of like Frank Gambale and going like, well, I'm seeing it now
yeah,
up close. And it's not impossible because he's doing it.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, for sure.
and there was
But also,
also
I found like student when you saw, at least when I was there, it was like you saw students that because at the time when I went there, it was like I thought like, well, you have to your last name has to be your name or Gilbert or Malmsteen to be able to play this stuff. But when you see normal people that like, what? How are you playing these Racer X songs? How are you playing this English song? It's like you're just a nobody, so to speak. You're not known, and
right.
that sort of fixes some thing in your mind, like, oh, maybe I could do this as well at some point.
Yeah, the
So I think,
psychological part all of a sudden
yeah,
is like, "Oh, this is doable."
yeah,
And I mean, I think that was one of the great things about MI, especially back in those days. You got to meet people from everywhere. So all the people with their little personal licks that have been scattered around the world
yeah,
that you never hear, all of a sudden it was like having the internet for a second,
mm,
because everybody from around the world converged into one place and we
yeah,
are all guitar players. And there were some guys that were like really, really good. I forget, there was some jazz guy that was real good. Some kid. There was a few in my class. One guy that was really good at playing all the Steve Morris first solo album. I
oh
remember
wow,
him being in the class, and I remember just going like, "Wow, dude, how'd you figure all that out?" It's still mind blowing to me. But yeah, it was. I'm trying to think of who else was there. Tim Henson, I think, was there.
yeah.
I think that's right.
I remember TJ telling me, because when he came to MI, Paul was teaching there, right? And he said he said like, well, when I came to MI, I was like, because if people don't know, TJ was, I mean, still is one of the best 8-finger tappers I've ever
Yeah,
heard ever. And he said like, well, when I came to MI, I practiced picking for 4 hours a day, and then I practiced 8-finger tapping for 4 hours a day. And then I saw Paul, and I was like, what's the point? And then he basically like, okay, 8 hours of 8-finger tapping, it is that basically. So, yeah, it's quite a interesting effect, I guess, seeing that. I think same thing for him, coming from he came from Chicago, but still like see people up close to do stuff, and you're like, it's like,
yeah.
I
And
need,
then there was the LA scene also.
yeah,
So like wow, like 1985, the scene was at its absolute like almost just pinnacle. Like the where the Roxy and Gazzari's was still there,
yeah,
and the whiskey, there would be like 1,000 people on the sidewalks just crammed up there, and everybody passing out flyers, and who was the hot guitar player and what band, and it was a different kind of a buzz. It was because in those days it was face to face. It wasn't
yeah,
keyboard to keyboard. It was you were
yeah.
passing around the information, and it was a
But
very interesting.
how did you feel like when you were in Racer X and things started to take off and whatever? Nowadays, you can go on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, whatever, and you can see like, oh yeah, we're trending now, or like we have, this is viral for our genre or whatever. But back
Right.
then it was like, even if you get interviewed by Guitar Player or Guitar World, that would be like months before, and like, how would you would you even feel that you were like in a band in that regard, besides you were playing live and stuff? But could you feel that the impact you had? Because again, I'm from a small town in Sweden initially, and I had your record, even though it was years later. So I mean, it's you were a big band, in at least in among guitar fans and things like that. So
For that time, because you're right, it was magazines, and that was really all you had. Um, unless you got big enough to be on MTV at that point, it was going. I remember a few things. One, the band got big quick. I ran I ran Spotlight for the first show, when it was still pre Scott Travis, and then we met at a rehearsal, and Scott joined, and I was ready to do the shows from then on out. And it got big so quick. We opened up for King Kobra, which was Carmine Apice's band. And so they were at the country club, and that was about a 1,200 seat venue. So we opened up for them. We opened up for what's the one lady that used to chomp all the people up with the axe?
the lady.
Yeah, remember that was Lizzy Borden.
Lizzy Borden.
Yeah. We opened up for Lizzy Borden. These were all bands that were selling out the country club. So we opened up for, I think it was Lizzy Borden first, and then we opened up for King Kobra. And I'll never forget that show too, because Chuck Norris came down at soundcheck,
Oh my God.
which has a whole nother thing, because we mixed the live album at Chuck Norris's house.
What?
Yeah,
How
most
did
people
that?
don't
So
know
random.
that. Yeah, but he had a studio in his house in Beverly Hills, and we ended up mixing the live album at Chuck Norris's house in Beverly Hills. It was awesome.
But he was that like his studio that he built, or was it just a studio that was in the house that he bought, and it was like, I might as well rent it out? Because I didn't know he did music at all.
I don't know, but it had sort of a secret entrance to it, which I remember that. Like, wow, there's a secret door that leads to this SSL room that was a fully like decked out. And the reason why we got that is that the two people that produced the live album were close with Chuck Norris.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know how he appeared, why he was at the King Cobra show that day. But anyway, there is some video footage of it where he shows up at soundcheck, and it's like, wow, there's Chuck Norris. Anyway, the band got big quick. We opened up for those couple bands, and then the crowd, you could tell we were taking 50%, if not more, of these people's crowds by opening up. And within 3 or 4 shows, we were headlining and selling out like 1,200 seats solid, no problem. And we had our circuit from LA and San Francisco were our two main places to play. And in San Francisco, you had downtown the Stone, and you had Oakland the Omni. So you could pivot between those, and then you'd have maybe a Fresno gig or something. We didn't really play too much outside of LA. I mean, out of California.
But did you play? Was it a lot of gigs? So you just went through, or was it like a gig a week, or you have a few a month, or did you just go do as much as you could?
As much as we could, and in those times, and that was sort of the part that I didn't like when I got to LA. I remember playing covers. I'd be 4 nights a week. I'm playing 3 hours a night. In LA, you may play 2 gigs a month. So it went to like 45 minutes a night for 2 nights. And it's like, it wasn't a lot. And that's why you started pivoting to different cities in the California coast. And we didn't have management or anything either. So it was, I mean, we were trying to manage ourselves, and it got so big so quick. I remember that all these places were calling us for like the Limelight from New York. We want to book you guys. I mean, I didn't know it then, but like that's really good when somebody does that. You don't
Yeah.
have a manager yet, and you're not trying to hustle for gigs, but you actually have venues in all the major cities calling
Hmm.
you, saying, "We want to book you guys," and we just never could get it together in time. We were trying to seek a bigger record deal, and
Yeah.
but to back to the original question, it did get big quick, and it went real fast. It was only about a year and a half, really. My whole run was not
Yeah.
long. We recorded the studio album, and then we recorded the live albums, which was really essentially 2 shows,
Yeah.
and and it was over. It was really quick, but it was fun. I can tell you
Yeah.
that. And we had respect from all the bands. I remember playing with Y&T, and Y&T was a big band for me. Like in Indiana, I thought Manketti was great. And, I had a lot of their albums, and to open up for them in a theater. And we kind of got clowned a little bit. They didn't give us any stage room, which, okay, yeah. So we had to put plywood from the stage out to the first seats just to have enough room to put Jeff in front of the drums. The
Oh
drums
my
were
God.
into the stage. I mean, they were clowning,
Yeah.
but we set it up and we sound checked, and their road crew was absolutely stunned. They were like, "What?" And so we had instant respect from all the people when we played with them, and it was a good time. It was a fun time to be in a
Yeah.
shreddy band.
Yeah. Yeah. But also, I mean, I've seen there's so many live clips out there, like bootlegs or whatever. So that's cool. But I didn't realize there was such a short amount of time as well. That must have been like a whirlwind for you. But even still, like your development from getting to MI, studying with Paul and all the other teachers. I'm guessing you sat in with in Frank's open counseling quite a lot as well.
Few times. He,
Yeah.
he's so scary, and of course I asked him probably the dumbest questions possible. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was pretty quick. The whole thing was quick, and about as far as like media and knowing how big it was getting. I did about 9 months in, after the pullout record came in the
Hmm.
Guitar Player magazine, and it had the Ibanez ad, and the pullout record you could play, and it had Scarified on it. And then Paul and I got this inside pullout poster where we're both with the fluorescent
Mm.
destroyer type Iceman guitars. And after that, I remember going into music stores and people going like, "Holy shit, the guy from
Oh
Racer X
my
is
God.
here!" And
That must have been cool.
it was. I mean, in LA, Paul and I would go in to get strings or picks or something. You could hear everybody in the store going like, "Holy shit! Look, the 2 dudes from Racer X are here." But it really hit me when I was going to visit my parents in Indiana, and I was doing sort of like thrifting, going through like music stores or pawn shops
Mhm.
and mom and pops places. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Looking for Marshall heads, because back then you could get them for a few $100.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember going into this music store in Kentucky, and middle of nowhere. And I walked in, and the dude was on the phone. "You got to get over here real quick, man! Like the dude from Racer X is here." And you could see he had the poster up back in
Oh my
the
God.
and I'm like, wow. It's like, that's so unbelievable. What a wild feeling. Um, Something I don't know if I would like all the time, to be honest, because I feel almost for people that get recognized no matter where they go.
Yeah.
It it's great, but it's also can be kind of tiring. I think that if like you're trying to eat, at a
Yeah,
restaurant.
yeah, yeah. I think it looks like, I think someone said like if you have a lot of money and you're famous, that's all right. But if you don't and you're just really famous, or like probably infamous in that case, that's
Yeah.
not a good time. But yeah, but what a great time for guitar though.
Oh, it was fun. I mean,
That
look,
time of the
I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I didn't even have to. It was such an odd thing because I didn't even have to pick up a guitar anymore. You could just walk in somewhere and people would be like, "Oh wow, dude!" It's like I mean, but I get it. I mean, I was the same way.
Yeah.
If I knew a really good guitar player, I just, I just wanted to meet him. I just wanted to like talk
Yeah.
with him. Like, hey man, how you doing this? And but it was neat, and it did get, it traveled around the world pretty quickly. I think those guitar magazines were the ones that really, in
Yeah.
Japan, embraced it, wholeheartedly. We did,
Yeah. Yeah.
best cycle for Japan, and um, they've always been very good. They've always liked the shred stuff, and they don't let go of it either. Like
No.
they still put Richie Blackmore on the cover over there. And I think that's awesome because I mean that guy deserves it still.
Yeah. I
He's
think
still
they respect the craft more than maybe
yeah,
Western society. It's like
yeah.
it's so. I
Mhm.
mean, the fact that you put like, what's her face, Taylor, what's her
Taylor
name?
Swift.
Yeah, that she's like on Rolling Stone's top 100 best guitar playlist, and she's like top 5. I mean, she does her thing, and but no, and I think
Exactly.
you're not on it. Paul Gilbert's not on it. Ingve is not on it. And you have like Frank Gambale is not on it. It's like ridiculous. It's like, what are we doing here? It's like a popularity contest. But
It is. It's a
so,
popularity.
yeah, so I think Japan is good in that regard because it's so like this, respect for the thing. I also remember it was always the Japanese students when I don't know if you guys had it, but we had this card you had to log in to the school and you could see all the hours. And then when you
Yeah.
happen to see some of the Japanese students' hours, you're like, what? You live here? It's like, this is insane. It's like, what are you even doing in there?
A
So
video lab got extensive
yeah,
workouts.
yeah, exactly. It was like crazy, crazy. So, but what would a typical day look like for you, like during the Racer X heyday, in terms of like practicing, or even before you join? Like, what would you do in a typical day in terms of like, did you have any type of schedule that you followed, or did you just sit down and try to get as much work in as possible?
Not really. I mean, when I got out there, I had worked enough in Indiana to be able to sort of do a year.
Hmm.
Not a year of getting to go and have a lot of fun out
No.
doing things, but
Yeah.
a year to be able to sit and work.
Yeah.
And so really, it was. I really just stayed a lot in my apartment, to be honest with you. And then I would go. I didn't really follow the courses 100%. Um, I mean, one part was kind of dumb in that sense, but my philosophy at one point was, well, I'm in a band with one of the teachers now, so
I'm good.
what do I need to keep coming into the school for? I've got him at rehearsal tonight,
Yeah.
But I would go there to sit and watch the good players,
Hmm.
and then go back home and then work, and then I'd pop in and watch some good players and get inspired, go back and work. But it was it's a lot easier to get good quick if you don't have to do a 9 to 5
Yeah.
for practice.
Yeah, for sure.
I didn't have to at that point, and like I say, I almost feel like I willed it into happening because I thought about it so much. I just wanted to be a great guitar player and be a known guy that was like, because if you're known, then you've made it to a certain degree of
Hmm.
success.
Well,
And
especially back then, like I mean, you still had pop artists and whatever, but in general, was a period of time there that if you were like a rock guitar player, you had to be good to be mentioned, pretty much. So
yeah,
that part is really true, I think. So
and I remember my dad after the fact. I remember him saying like, you should have manifested great songwriter first, or hit songwriter, should I say?
yeah,
Would have cured all the money woes right
yeah.
away. But
But how did you guys go about writing music? I mean, I, I I like the first Racer X album, but the second one is definitely my favorite. Did you? Was it? I know that's the one you did the Judas Priest cover as well,
yes.
right? But apart from that, all the other songs, was it done like someone came up with a riff, or did you do it together in a rehearsal space, or?
Yeah, it was a miss. sort of just a mashup of all that. It was, it's that old saying too. Paul had his whole lifetime up to that point to write Street Lethal, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's like, we need Second Heat in 9 months. While you're trying to build your following and book shows and all this.
Yeah.
And the fortunate side about it was getting big real quick ended up giving us the big room down in the rehearsal place, in Vernon, California. And there was some studios, Francisco Studios, and we had this massive. At this point now, it's a massive. It was the big room, and that's where most of the writing took place. And how it worked would be Scott would usually get there first, and he'd put an hour in, just play. He would play to like the hip hop station or whatever it was. He would not play to the metal stations. It was always to drum machine stuff. And I get it because he was working his meter,
Yeah,
and then we would get there and all fan in, and there was riffs, and then everybody brought stuff to the table, and there was times where I would go to Paul's apartment, and like I remember I brought in the beginning of Motorman. Mm-hmm. So we would try to do that arpeggio section and get that tightened up before rehearsal.
Yeah.
A lot of the harmony solos and stuff, oddly enough, were written when we were at Katati, right before we walked into the studio. I mean, we were up in the morning just writing, like, oh, let's put a harmony solo in that song. Okay. And let's start off with this. And I remember sitting in the cabin, and Jeff would be cutting vocals, and we were working up our stuff when we came in. But there was a few times like Scarified. I didn't write on Scarified.
Yep.
The bass player and I, Juan Alderete and myself, we went to 7-Eleven to get drinks for everybody. And we came back, and Paul and Scott were playing, and it was, Scott had that beat.
Yeah.
And, that's something that I think a lot of people, he doesn't get enough credit for, but that guy, it's hard to have something so signature that it the minute it happens. And that Scarified beat is a signature. It's like he wrote a drum song.
Yeah.
And the same with Painkiller. That intro to Painkiller is like a drum song in itself. And then to have a drummer that's that creative was really just a massive asset. And but in that case, we came back, and there it was. It was like, hey man, check this riff out. And it's like, okay, not the easiest riff for me, but let's go. And then it just was just written like that. It was just finished, and this is the next part, and hang on and learn your harmony.
Oh, so there was but they wrote not only the riff, they've also gotten like the following sections as well with arpeggios and all that stuff, or was that something you added on afterwards? I mean, obviously the harmony is added afterwards, but in terms of like the idea of like, oh, we're gonna go here after this, or like the main melody and stuff.
Paul had that little Bach part already under his fingers. And so at that rehearsal, while we were there, I mean, I'm knocking back like a 40-ounce Mountain Dew, and Paul's going like, hey, let's put this D major sweep in, and we're going to go to B7, and then that's going to take us to the Bach part that I know.
Yeah.
So really, we almost kind of walked out of there with it semi-gridded up. And then, some parts came together afterwards.
Yeah.
Oh, I got the string skipping thing. And
that's awesome.
It was, and there's a few songs, like we did 2 covers. So Moon Age Daydream, and then the raw, Heart of a Lion was the other cover. If you think about it, it's the album's only 36 minutes long.
Yeah.
It's short. We just got over the full length by a minute or two, and then we could call it a full lengthy, album. But like 70s albums were short. Like Aerosmith albums were only 36, 37 minutes long.
I think that David Lee Roth, Eat 'Em and Smile was like 33 or something.
Short. Yeah, and so really, we got the I remember sitting with Paul and we learned all the Heart of a Lion stuff and put it together. I'm trying to think. Yeah, at his apartment, I think.
Yeah.
And we would do a lot. Paul and I would get together the most, obviously, because we were the two guys that needed it.
Yeah.
You know,
Did you do it with a metronome together, or did you just do, or did you like learn it separately and then work on it just together, or did you have even like go, okay, let's try it now at 80% speed, and then, or was it more like 1, 2, 3, 4, here we go?
That's it, really. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, we didn't do a lot of metronoming together.
Yeah.
We played in time together, just
Yeah.
on our own,
Yeah.
and like certain things, like there's that trick we used to do where I
Yeah,
would throw my guitar behind my back and he would play the hand part while he picked it on the same guitar.
Yeah, I was
And
getting to that, but that we can't skip over that. But that's insane. But it's just,
people always look at that and go like, how, and honestly, that was one of the easiest things we did. And I remember working it up at his apartment, thinking like, it was one of his ideas. I think, you should play the neck and I should pick the guitar. And we worked out the solo right there to Getaway, I think it was.
Yeah.
And
there's live clips of it, actually. It's like,
and
it's really
we
cool.
could play it within the first 25 minutes. It was like, once we worked it all up, it was like, yeah, this is going to work. This will be great at the live show.
Yeah. But
And,
it makes sense though, because like the good hand synchronization, like if you nail it with the fretting hand and you nail it with the right hand, it will work. That's the thing. Like, so
well, his hand would be behind me, and I could tell he was fingering the solo.
Yeah.
As he was picking it.
Mhm.
And that was also another massive, like, eye-opening awareness thing for me, is that essentially I had his pick hand for 30 seconds. And from that, I could tell I'll never have that. If I practiced for 1,000 years and weight trained and everything, I would never have what he has. Structurally, it's just his muscle structure is different.
Yeah.
Just like no different than like a Michael Jordan playing basketball. His physical structure was slightly different enough to make him have that edge. Some of it could have been mental and visual, but with Paul's picking, I remember when he would do the alternate picking stuff, my fingers would start to go numb because he picked so hard, picked really hard back then. He used heavy picks too. I mean, nowadays he just thins, but back then it was heavies. And it was like the power coming off of his pick hand. We're talking, this is the pick hand that made that first instructional video that everybody, that opening statement he made. And it's like, it was super interesting. Like, wow, okay.
But I do think, like, because I'm not sure if you're aware of Cracking the Code, the Troy Grady stuff with the pick slanting and all that stuff. And I have a lot of students come to me and like, oh, I can't pick because of this pick slanting thing. And then you go into like see what can be, what the problem could be and so on. But there's also a lot of talk about like, or at least some people on YouTube say like, oh, this is the way to pick. You need to pick like this. But I don't think that's true, because if I look at like Vinnie Moore, who I think is one of my favorite, the sounds of his alternate picking when he was like, the early records was like amazing. Amazing, right? And same thing with like Steve Morse, Meola, Yngwie, whoever, you, Paul, you all do it slightly differently, but you all sound really good. So I think if you would have tried to do it exactly as Paul, it probably wouldn't have worked because of the physical differences. Because that's the thing I think people don't realize, that if Paul is quite tall, and then if you someone that's much shorter than him, different limbs, try to do it exactly like it looks like he's doing it, I think you can paint yourself into a corner that way.
Very much so. And his reach was also his it's not the average reach.
No. But it's
I believe his pinky is middle finger.
Yeah. But did you do a lot of practicing in front of the TV as well? Because I've heard that like Paul used to do that, and I know a bunch of musicians that have done like just take what like the Meola lick and just sit there in front of, I don't know, The Price is Right at the time or whatever, and just pick away.
I don't remember doing much of that. I had like a little practice set up in my apartment in
Yeah.
Hollywood. I can tell you though, when I came back to playing after I'd injured my hand and I started trying to play again
Mm-hmm.
after I found some therapy that actually worked, I did sit in front of I started utilizing the TV, the computer, and I would sit and have the camera on my hands and watch to make sure that I wasn't developing bad technique because I started fresh again. I went from this grip to the up grip.
Oh, so
And
this is a new thing for you?
yes, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, all right.
Played traditionally, I always played, like a normal, like this. And then I developed massive pain in this finger. And because I just didn't grip right. So I moved to a 3-finger grip, and I figured, well, with 3 fingers, I'm gonna rule out that problem I had last time, and it gives me a little bit. It's not dependent on just 2 fingers to grip. 3 will get done. So when I play nowadays, I actually go back and forth. When I dig into strings, I go back to this grip, and for the rest of the stuff, it's usually this. So, six one, half dozen of the other. But I did use mirrors, and I would sit in front of TVs, but I'd have it turned off. I just looked at the reflection.
Okay. So it wasn't the distraction to get the time in. I think a quote I heard from Paul, because I've also got some of like the open counseling things, like some older stuff, and he said something about it's so boring to do that stuff. So maybe he would get, he would be 100% focused if he didn't have the TV, but he would rather, actually do 70% focus and get the time in, because otherwise he wouldn't, be able to do it.
He was probably more of developing just physical strength and stuff on certain licks. And there would be once I joined the band and we were going full time on the band, there would be certain licks that we were incorporating that you could see it in a couple backstage videos where he's with the pink Mockingbird, and you can hear him. He's working on the new lick of the week that we've incorporated into, so there was, that repetitive practice. There was a lot of that going on.
But you came up with the Motorman sweep intro then, because I think that's what comes to mind when you said that, because I don't remember what thing this was from, but it was backstage, bunch of people coming in and out, Paul sitting on an unplugged guitar, and he's playing that major arpeggio down, up, 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 the repeating. And I've also heard him say that was like a really hard thing for him to do.
It was. It ended up being pretty hard. And in all fairness, I think we wrote ourselves into a little bit of a technically hard place to be at times. Like we didn't have to be. And he said it best. I think he did an interview recently, and I'm not sure. It might have been the Rick Beato interview or some other interview, but back then we were going for more of an intensity thing. And we really were. Our whole thing was we want to be so over the top that nobody even compares. And that sort of translated into our playing in the studio at that time. Like nothing was off limits. And after we started playing them live, standing up, it's like, wow, this was a lot easier when we were sitting down in a controlled environment instead of the chaotic stage, back then with, no in-ears or anything. It's just monitors and some loud amps and having to play some of those harmony solos.
And you weren't standing still either. You were doing the like running around thing as well from
like it was a show.
Yeah. So that's like, you really need to know it then. Like it's crazy. But when you so you wrote a lot of stuff together then as a band. But when you I've heard this from you did an interview with Shred Music TV, and that was the first time I heard the thing about the studio that you actually record on the same guitar in the
Yeah.
same amp, and so you didn't even change the settings. Did you just switch guitar? Like,
Just handed it back and forth. I mean, I still remember that like yesterday.
yeah.
And
Was that was there for a specific? Was it for everything you did, or was it just specific parts for it? Or
well, the whole album, because Mike Varney's budgets were small, you know, and it was excellent too. I mean, I am grateful for the fact that that first album was cut with no click track.
Yeah.
The second, all the basics were done in a day, and maybe one song the next day. So bass and drums were done in one day, basically.
That's
And
really
and then Jeff would cut. We cut one set of guitars, and then Jeff started singing. And as we would do guitars at nighttime, he'd wake up and start doing vocals, and then we would be working on this, and then they would start mixing one in the other studio.
Oh, wow.
So it was so quick. It was, you know, by the time we actually got into the recording process, it was only about 4 to 5 days it was done, mixed. And we would sit in the studio, and we had one rig. It was two 4x12 Marshalls, and we had a Boss chorus pedal splitting the signal into two Marshall heads, early 70s Marshall heads, and they were Lee Jackson modded. And then it went into a Hush 2C, and then into the cabinets. And the chorus pedal was turned off. You know, it was just a splitter.
Yeah.
So we had two guitars with us, and really two like really just bizarre guitars. One was an American guitar, and that was who was the guy that was it the guy that did BC, not BC Rich, but Jackson, or something. It was his new company.
So is it still around? The
company?
No. Okay.
Wayne Charvel.
Oh, it was Charvel. Okay, all right.
Charvel, yes. Yeah. It was he had parted with Charvel, and he was starting a new company called American Guitars. So he made Paul a purple Wilshire shaped guitar with the headstock. And then we had one of the Epiphones that Paul had Frankenstein. And those are the two guitars we used. They weren't really like that American guitar was really unique. You know, it was still back in the day when everything was done by hand too. You know, there was no CNC machines yet. And the Epiphone was a beater. You know, these guitars were you know, it wasn't like having a you know, Fireman deluxe guitar like Paul has now, or like a Suhr guitar or an Anderson. Yeah. These were not like the easiest guitars to jump on and play. And like like both of them, Paul was real fond of wiring parallel instead of series. So basically you're turning your humbucker into two single coils instead of one humbucker. So the sound was harder to play on. It was cleaner, and it was a little bit more trebly. Yeah. And you know, you've played on single coils before. It's a big difference between them and humbuckers. And we literally just sat next to each other, like here to here, and the control board was right in front of us, and the producer and engineer, and he would do his rhythm and then hand it to me, and I would double it. Then he would do his solo harmony part, and he'd hand it to me, and I would double it, and it would be the same guitar.
Awesome.
And it was another eye-opening moment where it's like, wow, my hands sound different than his hands.
Yeah.
And his are more like tight and brighter, and mine were a little bit looser and a little bit fatter.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, there's no mistaking it, because they weren't changing the EQ or anything. It was like, here, hand it, play it. Yeah, man, when my chords come in, it's got a different sound.
Yeah, but that's the thing though. That's so important, I think, for people, whether you're new or old. But a lot of people try to be like, well, I should just get that new pedal. Instead, like, no, you probably should practice more. That's how you're gonna improve your sound, or change your sound more than like, you know, buying some more gear. So I think that, that's really interesting actually. But did you have for those two guitars, was it like, this is the guitar for the rhythm and this is the guitar for the solos, or was it just you mixed it however you felt sounded best for the song?
Yeah, it was sort of just whatever was in the hand at that point. And then if you wanted to switch to a different guitar, I think there might have been a few times where I think I took the solos of mine on the American.
Yeah.
It was the easier guitar to play in my book, and
Yeah.
um, it had a little bit more distortion, so it might have had a slightly different pickup in it.
Hmm.
I think Paul was using more DiMarzio super distortions, ran in parallel. Don't quote me. I'm
Yeah.
not sure. He wrapped them in foil, so you really couldn't tell what they were, really,
Yeah.
to be honest. But um, it moved quick, and I remember there was no time to get caught up. There was a few things where, like the end of my solo for the Scarified, I got caught up on the very end of it.
Yeah.
Like I didn't do a pass, and I got stuck on the end, and I couldn't come up with something like that's going to do it. And I mean, Paul would be there and just say, "Hey, try that backwards, kind of type lick or
Yeah.
something." And we didn't have a lot of time. Basically,
Also, you couldn't punch in as accurately as you can now either
it
at
was
all.
tape.
Like,
Yeah, it was
yeah.
tape. It was also, you couldn't run the tape to death because you start losing your high end on the
Yeah.
cymbals and stuff. So and
Quite a lot
punches.
of pressure then. Must have been quite a lot of pressure then, like having Mike Varney breathing down your necks, and then like sitting next to Paul and everyone and recording the it's not it's not Creedence Clearwater recording.
Yeah, you didn't have a lot of do it agains.
Yeah.
And like, when we first rolled into Katati up at the studio at Prairie Sun, MacAlpine was recording his second album. So
Oh,
he was in
that's cool.
Studio B, and I was such a huge MacAlpine fan at that point too. I loved his playing, loved
Yeah.
that first album. And I remember George Lynch came up to play. I remember there was a pipe in the back of the studio that fed, like just like an air vent
Hmm.
into the big control, into the tracking room. And
Yeah.
I remember I could go back there with a tape deck when George was in there playing, and I was bootlegging him the whole time. Him and sorry, George, but him and Tony both. I mean, those were the days when that's how you got your new stuff. And I was like, all right, no way I'm passing this up.
No, but it must have
And
been awesome because I mean, I that's probably my favorite McAlpine album still. Like
great.
it's amazing, and also George played on what's it called, the ballad "Tears of Sahara," and one other track maybe, I don't remember, but he yeah, that's some classic stuff. We didn't realize that. So while you were recording your classic album, you were right next to another like big guitar classic
Yeah,
album.
Tony was finishing his. He
Yeah.
was almost done, and he was bringing in the guest. But I mean, literally, I remember getting out of the car, and there was like a couple studios, the farm, and
Yeah.
some houses where you band houses, and then the main house. And I remember Mike was there, and you could hear Tony overdubbing his solos.
Yeah.
And I just remember, like, this is, for me at that point, it was like the greatest thing ever, because
Yeah.
I've successfully navigated from Vincennes, Indiana, to I'm here with some of the best guitar players, drummers, and bass players, musicians in general. Making my first album. And what a great first album to make, because it was done quick, and it was done with no click, no Pro Tools. It was done all on tape, no computers.
Yeah.
And I just remember listening to the rough mixes. It was sort of like a game room, and I was in there listening to the rough mixes, and I couldn't believe how good it was. I just remember
Yeah.
thinking, like, all my friends back home in Vincennes are gonna freak out when they hear this.
That's amazing. But how long did it take before when it came out? Like, what was like the time from completion, and then is it like a few months or what? How
It
long was
wasn't
it?
long. No, it was. He got it out pretty quick.
Yeah.
I remember a box showing up at the house, and it was vinyl and CDs and cassettes, and
Oh,
it was like,
CDs as well. That's cool. That was
yeah,
quite early, right?
very
CDs.
early.
Yeah.
The
Very cool.
bulk of it was vinyl and cassettes,
Yeah.
but there were CDs already. Well, CDs were, a big medium by
Yeah.
'86, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Yeah, it was out pretty quick, and the press was followed suit right after it too. That's when the Guitar Player magazine put us in, and all the Japanese people flew over to LA to do these big press days, and it just moved so quick. And by that time, also we were selling out, theaters. It was good time. It was good times. I mean, I felt on top of the world for those moments. It was a
I
fun
think it
band.
was, yeah, but it's such a special time. I mean, there's a reason why the 80s are also like so, people looking back with nostalgia and, Stranger Things
Right.
and whatever. But to live that era in like the peak guitar era as well, that's amazing. So I mean that's such a cool thing to be part of. But also then when the 90s came, must have been such a bummer for everyone, because like it's in terms of like how because I remember Steve I talking about like, yeah, I was, but everyone loved me in every interview, and then like every interview I read about myself like in the 90s, like what a piece of shit I am because I could play guitar. Basically like it's completely like turned around. It's like, no, you suck.
Yeah,
Almost
it was the kiss of death. Like if you had gone to MI, nobody wanted to touch you.
yeah,
Like, oh, you're a school player, and the '90s wanted to strip down raw
yeah.
sound. Funny enough, though, like I became friends with some of the biggest '90 bands out there in metal and rock, and
Hmm.
all those dudes had like massive respect for Racer X. Because they were all musicians, and even though
Yeah,
they played differently, they had a respect that when we would show up at shows and stuff like that, like they were happy, generally happy to see us, and
yeah,
we get along well. But it was hard to get gigs,
yeah.
and it was sort of the downfall. But the good thing about Racer X was we didn't have to have that. We weren't the last of the '80s
No.
where we got we fell from glory. We 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 called it a day at the height of the band.
Yeah.
I remember the last show we played, it was sold out. We knew it was over, but we went out on top. People had banners. It was like the old school concerts where they
Yeah.
paint the name on bed sheets and big banners, and people had the albums inside the
Yeah.
venue. Um, and so by '88, it was over. So there was still a couple years, and
Yeah. Yeah.
that
You have.
that's when the '80s really, like, the last bands that were like getting big then, and so it would have been some like the Wingers and stuff like that they took the brunt end of it because they were big at the end of the '80s like that,
Yeah.
going into the '90s, and then all of a sudden, everybody like MTV turned on the bands
Mm.
too. I felt like that was sort of a shitty thing to do, to be honest. One minute you're using these bands to make a lot of money
Yeah.
because they're doing well for you, and the next minute you got Beavis and Butthead like
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
destroying,
No. But
pinpointing the ones they want destroyed, and you know, granted, the music. If you lived in LA and were in that scene, it was time for it to die.
yeah.
It really was, and
Yeah.
what came next was great. I love the '90s music.
Mm.
I mean, all those bands that came up in the '90s were great writers. You get
Yeah.
that Soundgarden Super Unknown album will always be a classic album.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but the '80s were asking for it at the end. They
Yeah.
weren't hired. They just wanted somebody that looked good. We'll get the songs made for you. We'll hire studio guys. No, you're not going to play on the album. You're just going to be on the picture. It was it was turning into something that was like, we've
Yeah.
had enough of this. Everybody was trying to play faster than the next person on guitar, and nothing was being really, musical, I guess, in that sense.
It was
I mean,
was just more for for the sake
everything
of
was
more.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you could see. I mean, the look was just tired and overinflated by that point,
Yeah.
and had been done for 10 years now, if not
Yeah.
longer. And but it's funny because then anybody who played guitar got to see the reemergence of great guitar playing when the 2000s started
Oh
hitting,
yeah.
and you started getting around 2005, and you start seeing all these new players emerging that are like, yeah, they're bringing it back, but
Yeah.
bringing it back with a whole new thing with it this time, and
Yeah.
it's been really cool to watch.
But I think though, what the thing you said about like you, the guys, in the '90s bands that that they knew about Race Rex and all that stuff, that makes so much sense. But also, there was a Billy Corgan interview with Steve Vai recently, and he was part of that early Smashing
Yeah.
Pumpkins, and he said he used to practice like 4 hours a day and try to work on MacAlpine stuff and stuff like that, because it makes sense though, because they started, a lot of those guys probably started in the early '80s, where it was like, this is cool now, this is what you're supposed to do, and sitting there learning modes and whatever. And I think what's his name, Rivers Cuomo.
Yeah.
Yeah, he in some interviews, so random, like, oh yeah, they played some part of Far Beyond the Sun. Like the intro was like, what? This doesn't make any sense at all. But then when you think about it, like, oh, of course, they grew up in that era. So
Well, they were definitely secret shredders, man. They
yeah.
like and
Yeah,
they
but that's the
don't
thing.
make,
They had to hide it. They had to hide, because it's not cool. It's not cool
yeah.
to be a yeah.
But later on, they all admit, like, of course, I mean, I'm not going to throw out any names right now, but it's like, you'd be surprised, some of these people that were like, wow, really, you're not known for shredding or anything, but all the shredders, and you've
Yeah.
been practicing the same licks.
But I think you could hear like so in the '90s when all that started. Well, if you compare it to what came before, it looked like it's like, oh, it's dumbed down and whatever. But if you listen to it now, you can really hear that they're great musicians. They're just
Yeah.
they're just doing the songs, but you can hear that it's like, yeah, it's a bit grungier, for a better sense, better word for it. But it's like you can still hear that they can play. I'm
Oh
not
yeah.
saying that everyone was sitting there holding back their sweeps, but I think you can tell that they actually, they worked on their instruments at some point. It wasn't just like picking up a guitar and like strumming away. So
I mean, when I heard the Nirvana album, when Nevermind dropped,
yeah,
I thought his rhythm playing was amazing. You could
yeah,
hear how in tune he
yeah,
was, and then you started seeing videos of him. Who's another guy? Billy Joe from Green Day.
yeah.
These are guys that are primary rhythm guys,
Mm-hmm.
but they're really intonated and really
Yeah,
in tune, and it
yeah,
really just flows out of them in a great way. And so there was a lot for me to like. I started seeing that, going like, wow, that's, I do like rhythms like that. I do
yeah.
like big, easy to play rhythms that just are fun to play. And
So what happened with when did you start getting in trouble with your hand? What happened? What start was it? So there was a right hand that started to.
it was the left hand, and
Okay.
I was just over practicing. I
Yeah.
was just trying to take it to that next level, and doing a lot of stuff. I look back and like, what was I thinking? But I did really injure my hand bad. I got carpal tunnel so bad, and then my hand swelled up here
Oh my
really
God.
bad, and it got to the point where I couldn't grip a guitar anymore.
Yeah, that's
And
that is
so
bad.
like doing this hurt, like just
Yeah.
pushing on the strings. And that happened at the very end of Racer X. And I actually missed a show at the Troubadour. I was
Oh
getting
wow.
my
Well, that bad. Oh my God.
Yeah, I went to the hand surgery. The best clinic in the US was in Kentucky. And I went there, and I remember they said, well, we can operate, but the best that's going to come back is about 75%. And I
Yeah.
thought, that's the best. If
Yeah. No.
only 50% comes back, I'm Captain Hook the rest of my
Yeah.
life. Um, so I just said I'm not going to do it, and I thought that it was, I started getting simpler playing wise. I stopped doing all the really big stretches.
Yeah.
Race X sort of disbanded around that point, and then I went to direction more with the Scream,
Mm-hmm.
which was like try to be a little bit more like a Zeppelin band,
Yeah.
which was working great because that was going right into the '90s.
Yeah.
So for those couple years, we were after Racer X. It was like, you know what? I don't think I can play like that anymore. And I'm thinking I want to go back to more of a blues rock sound
Yeah.
because I grew up with a lot of that. And I made it through the Scream and some tours with that. And then about the time Karabi joined Motley Crue and that whole thing fell apart, it had gotten to the point where it was real hard to play. I tried a little bit more after that with a band called DC-10.
Okay, so this just kept going, even when you simplified and you didn't do any,
I
real
kept
hard
trying to hang on,
practicing.
and I just kept getting simpler because
Yeah,
DC-10 was almost like a funk band almost,
yeah,
where I was playing a Fender Twin with a Strat, so it was not any of this anymore.
yeah.
I just got to the point where I couldn't. But that band, even though it never was really formally released or anything, we did cut an album, and it was with Abe Laboriel Jr. on drums, and he had just got out of Berkeley and just fresh in LA, and
He's
so
awesome.
super nicest guy in the world too. Loved it. Put him through torture at my studio with AC being out in the middle of Los Angeles summer, but anyway, after that, I finally called it a day and went to build studios and started engineering and producing stuff. And I couldn't play anymore. And I took it was really a 6-year hiatus in my 30s, which is some of the best golden years of
Yeah,
guitar playing and input and learning
yeah.
and advancing. And I missed all that.
But if
Um,
you still, you started your studio thing, and you still in music, and you're using your ears in a different way. So I really do think, like, yeah, you might have missed some technical stuff during that time, but I think you probably came out when you started playing and a better musician. So
I learned a lot,
yeah.
and had in hindsight, I'd known that I would get my ability back,
Hmm.
and I can play as much as I want now.
Yeah.
Uh, I would have taken those 6 years and just inputted information, like
Yeah.
triad information. Hey,
Hmm.
you know what? Now's a good time to learn all your triad shapes
Yeah.
and get them
Yeah.
ready to play them in time. There was a lot of stuff I could have done as far as more like studying
Yeah.
and learning and inputting like the basics that I really needed. Because in Racer X, really people think that you knew everything because you put out this album and
Hmm.
I mean we were just learning what Mixolydian was,
Yeah.
and later on, I remember sitting with a guy that was a pro session guy that toured with all the biggest players out, the biggest artists out there, and
Yeah.
some massive ones, you know. And we were sitting making some songs for the Fox Library, which is for like all the sports and stuff.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
and there was this sort of Lydian progression that was kind of funky and just easy, just sounded good. And he's sitting over there playing over it like even when somebody walks in the room, he's talking to him while he's soloing over it. And I'm like, he goes, take one, man. And I just sounded like as horrible as a person could sound. It was trickier than what it sounded.
Yeah.
And I remember going like, what? How are you playing through these changes so well? And it had a lot of changes in it.
Oh, so it
Because
wasn't just purely modal, it was like changes as
yeah, I
well.
mean, it was
Yeah.
not one key. It was
Yeah.
multiple key changes. And he goes, well, I just get in where I fit in. And I'm like, that's not the answer I'm looking for.
No.
And then he took the guitar and he just went blink, 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 blink. And he played all the triads of the chords just without even thinking. It's like, you
Mm.
see those people that know it so
Yeah.
well, the jazzers and stuff. They just walk right off the neck. And I was like, oh. See, in Racer X, I just learned the big sweeps because
Yeah.
that's the ones that like people
Exactly,
want.
exactly.
That's the ones that are oh, look how massive and big this is and how
Yeah.
wild it sounds. But I never stopped and took just the three notes
Mhm.
and able to switch chords to the three notes of each chord
Yeah.
rapidly. And I was stuck with the big shape. And so then that's about the time I started going. I missed all of that in my 30s.
Yeah.
This is later now. I'm in my 40s now, and I'm
Hmm.
starting to play again. And so I really, in my mid 40s, I did a massive um, restructuring and learning. I went really hard on the triads. Like I worked on my triads every morning. I would get up and I had some of the most ridiculous challenges, doing 2-5-1s
Yeah.
down the neck.
Would you just go like 3 notes for each one, or did you go like a four note pattern? And did you stick to you stuck to the triads? If you do, you did would go like D minor, G major, C
No
major.
scale, no scale
Yeah,
yet. No, I'd just
yeah,
be doing 2-5-1, 2-5-1, 2-5-1,
yeah.
and I have to stay in one spot on the neck and
Mm,
shift through all the triads in time with, and this was with a metronome, and
yeah.
and so I'd be getting up early with the coffee, and some of the motivation for that was getting asked to do the Joe Satriani camp
Oh,
where
that's
he has
cool.
the teaching, and Paul was one of them, and I think Paul was suggested, "Hey man, you gotta call my buddy up to do some classes." And
What year was this roughly?
oof, this is well, it's worth two. Well, it have to be about almost 9 years ago.
Yeah. But so
So
you had 6 years where you couldn't play at all. So and because I remember when the first new era Racer X was coming out, and I
yeah,
was like so disappointed when I didn't see your name, and then I
mhm.
heard like Paul talk about your hands, and I'm like, okay, and that felt better in a way, because then like it's a reason for it, no falling out and stuff like that, and obviously it's not better for you, but you know what I mean. But that was such a bummer to me, because that would have been so cool to see the whole band together again, you know.
Me too. And oddly enough, when they were recording Snowball of Doom at the Whiskey,
Yeah.
if you looked in the LA Weekly at that time, the whiskey and the Troubadour ads were right next to each other, and my band, Epidemic, was
Yeah.
showcasing for I think it was RCA or Electra or something. The same night they were recording Snowball of Doom up the hill at the
Oh my
whiskey.
god.
We were playing at the same times. It was
but
an odd thing, and
But
and
were you back to playing then, or was that more like a simpler stuff as
I was
well?
back to playing, but this was the very beginning of starting to play again,
Yeah.
and I had I produced a band that broke up right before they were getting signed to Roadrunner. So it was like this kind of like really wild Cajun punk band.
Hmm.
And the drummer was like really this really artistic guy. We're still very good friends. And he wrote a lot of the lyrics and came up with these really wild drum parts and stuff. He goes, I know you can play. He goes, let's try to write something. So I thought, well, I can't play like this yet. It still was trying to work it out, but I could do one finger stuff. And so I did an open tuning and with a drop A to make it new metal, And so we got a low drop down A, and then my tuning was A A E. So it was just a big A power chord.
Yeah.
And we wrote one song with a drum machine and an MPC 60 and a little Passam cassette 4-track.
Hmm.
And we both looked at each other after we wrote it and was like, we're going to get a big record deal. We knew it right there that we had something that was like, watch, this is going to get a big record deal.
Yeah.
So I started working that style out. And that's when, this would have been late 90s, early 2000. And that's when Snowball of Doom they were
Yeah.
Racer X got back together. See, I couldn't play those songs yet. I would have
Yeah.
loved to done that, and certainly I passed up a giant amount of money to play on the album.
Yeah.
And So that's really I was at the point where I was coming back with an open tuning in one finger, and and the worst part about that, and this is a lesson that really was a life lesson to look back on. I had worked my whole life trying to do all this and everything. And
Yeah.
the biggest record deal I ever had and the most money I ever made was from the one finger band.
Oh,
And you know, you could add your pinky to make it major or minor. That was the other thing you could do to it.
well, that's
But
cool.
but it was really almost kind of funny, like, to
Yeah.
me, in a way, like, wow. But in doing so too, like, a lot of people don't know about that band or that album because I changed my name for it. I
Oh,
didn't
okay.
wanna I didn't wanna go out and have everybody wanting to hear this and
Yeah.
then be super disappointed, like, "I just used one finger the whole time, it sucked."
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? So I just chopped off my last name and went with my middle name, so nobody knew. It
Hmm.
was excellent, and, you know, I'm touring with all these bands like Seether and Breaking Benjamin and
Oh.
Nickelback, and so we were on
Yeah,
a we were
you had a whole career after. I mean, I knew you have done a lot of stuff after Razor X, but I didn't realize that you did that. This band was quite big as well. Then I
yeah, it
mean,
was on
in the
national
yeah.
radio, we were on MTV, we had a video on
Ah,
MTV, and we were doing, you know, arenas, and
yeah.
the
Did you
openers.
hide in the video so you didn't show everyone you play with one finger? You did the
No,
opposite
no,
of the Van
I
Halen.
kinda shined at that point, but, I do remember being out with, I think it was Seether and some other band and, our band, and we were at a Mexican restaurant,
Yeah.
and everybody was ordering drinks, so they were checking IDs, and out of the whole table, the guy looks at my ID and goes, "Bruce Bouillet," and everybody at the table turned over and looked at me, and they go like, "You're the guy from Racer X?"
Oh my
And it was
god.
like my cover was blown. It was like, "Ah, cover is."
Well, I mean, you that name though is like it's such a it's not Mike Smith, it's like it's a giveaway for
Yeah,
sure.
there's not too many Bruce Bouillets, if any, in the world. I think I'm the only
No,
one. So,
that's
um,
really really cool. So in the school community that I have, I actually had some people ask some questions, and that was one of the questions. I can just ask it now. Where did did you just wait it out the whole hand thing, or did you do something to get it back?
you know what it was is that the internet started to
Yeah.
happen. And with the internet, the original internet was to source information.
Hmm.
But once the internet started cooking a little bit more, you could source full libraries.
Yeah.
Like, you could go to like these colleges, and
Hmm.
I started looking for a cure to fix the carpal tunnel. There's got to be something out there, and there was a book written by this lady, and I've quoted it as myrotherapy, but that's wrong. It's actually another kind of therapy. I'd have to go look it up. But there is a therapy for sports injuries and people that do repetitive stuff like typists.
Hmm.
Nowadays with keyboards, I'm sure that this is a known thing, but it was real new age sounding to me. Like, I'm
Yeah.
from back in the day with doctors, you know, it's they had these old school remedies and stuff, but
Yeah.
this sounded so new agey. Um, but I was sort of desperate. I had, you know, I wanted to play again, and it was a you had to sort of cut off pressure points and hold it for a certain
Hmm.
amount of time, then release. And I tried it, and after about a week, it was like, you know what? I can grab a guitar again and play without it hurting. And it would flare back up, you know, as I started
Yeah.
playing gigs and stuff, and I'd have to do these, and I still do this if
Yeah.
if I have a full day of students and we're just improvising over backing tracks, you know, I'm giving it to them at
Yeah.
full, you know, output. And
Putting the smackdown down. You're not holding
I
back.
well, you know, and they're videoing, so I don't want it to be, you know, I want it to, hey, you can watch this at home and you're going to want to play.
Yeah.
And if I do that, I have to do the pressure points at nighttime, but it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
And be able to play again, like, you can only imagine, you
Yeah.
know, being cut
Well,
off at your peak prime, and then, you
yeah.
know,
Do
uh,
you feel like if you got that like back in the Racer X days, right when let's say the gig that you had to bail on, do you think that would have helped you at that point as well, or was it also like that you kind of dialed it back so much for like 5 6 years?
you know what? Some of it was also, it was the bigger stretches.
Yeah.
And I was trying to keep up with somebody whose hand size was double mine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So a lot of things that were written, And I think that's what Paul was saying too on some things. It's like, why did we write things that were so really hard to play?
Yeah.
Um, so, there was some things that I cut out. Um, the big stretches is one of them, which unfortunately is the end of Scarified.
Yeah.
And those diminished stretches that are string skipped are
Mm.
pretty wide,
Yeah.
for my hand. And so I know when I came back and started playing again with that style and got asked to do the Paul tour and the
Yeah.
G3 with him, um, he was pretty cool about it. Like the end of Scarified, I only did half of
Yeah.
each of the licks, so I didn't have to try to do the whole string skip. I could
Mm.
just do and it still sounded harmonized and
Yeah,
it still.
but that gives you like, then it's like, oh look, they've updated a bit. There will no one be like, oh, Bruce bail on this. No, but I do think it's
I wish the keyboard warriors were so nice.
yeah, no, but I think Michelangelo Badio talked about he I don't know how old he is, but he's up there, right? And he said he's been playing for a long time and he's never had any problems with his hands. And he said this because it's always his theory anyway, that it's always like try to keep them in a very whatever his hands looks like when he just relaxes next to his body. That's where he tries to keep it. But also another thing he said was he would never practice big stretches down there. He might play one in a solo, but he wouldn't sit there and do like 1,000 reps down here. He would do like the reps up high where you can get the coordination and stuff, and then you maybe do 5 reps down there for the solo, and then you're not gonna, completely kill your hands. So
Right.
I do think
And
it's
that was a big part of it, was the stretch. And since then I've cut all that out.
yeah.
It's like, okay, I have such different viewpoints of guitar now that I've played for all these years and went through a lot of this struggles with the hand and all that. But my whole vision changed in like the last 5 years, where
Mm.
I'm more interested in things that are easy to play that sound really good.
Yeah.
And I want a big bag of like easy things that I know I can land in an improv situation that always can fit, are always rhythmically like can groove good. And so I constantly tell my students, like, yeah, I get it. Like I wanted to do these massive licks too back when I was,
Yeah.
19 and 20. And but the reality is, a lot of times, is a big massive lick like that only fits in so many places.
Mm.
But a little bitty lick that's short, and you can fit that almost anywhere.
Yeah.
And so be careful with your time, because if it is a big lick, I look for something in it that I can use easily.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I like the big lick and I like the concept of it. But a lot of times it's real easy to learn something like that and then forget it.
Yeah.
So you've essentially wasted a week. Like if I go down the fusion rabbit hole,
Yeah.
and there's some like killer fusion players, and it's like, yeah, I think I want to learn that crazy outside lick. And I spent about a week on it, and then I couldn't play the first 2 notes of it right now. I forgot it all
Yeah.
because it doesn't really fit anywhere. And I
Yeah.
don't really listen to fusion all the time.
No.
That's another thing. If you're going to be a jazz player, you're probably going to need to listen to jazz all the time.
Yeah.
You're going to want it. And I like old school rock. I like the new stuff that's coming around. I was still like exposed to a lot of electronica and stuff in the 90s when it first started coming out, and you had
Mm-hmm.
all the all the bass and drum and stuff like that coming
Yeah.
out of Europe. And I like all the new bands. I liked new metal a lot.
Yeah.
I like the metal that's out now, and I like there's a lot of bands that I just go like, these bands are great, but I don't go down the rabbit hole so much. I try to look for things that are going to benefit me the most,
Yeah.
and a lot of times that is simpler stuff, and not that I say don't play fast. I'm not one of those guys. I love fast.
No, I mean, your Patreon, I'm gonna link to everything down below as well, so people can check it out. But your Patreon, you have the, you know, solos that are just new solos over backing tracks sound really, really good. And no one will look at it and be like, yeah, he's just playing the simple stuff, because that's, they might be simpler for you coming from like the Razor X days, but it's amazing stuff. But I also saw that you do hybrid picking now.
Yeah.
That's a new development as well, right? Or new-ish. I don't know
And that
when
kind of
that
came
came
from
in.
like I was aware that Shane Lane was doing that
Yeah.
back in the day. You could see that, oh, he's got something moving down here.
Mhm.
He's playing with it. And then obviously, Brett Garsed.
Yeah. He, you know.
Forget about it. So I saw him early on too, and it was like, wow, I always knew guitar was going to keep like going into these like crazy new players coming out and new techniques. And that technique's probably been around forever. I mean, the country
Yeah.
guys doing it long ago. And
Yeah, for sure. But I think with Brett, for example, because Brett was teaching a lot when I was there in 95, 96. And that was like also like sitting next to him and see him do it. And also he's such a, well, like you, like very down to earth and like, I'm just doing this and whatever. But it's, yeah, I think, but Eric Johnson as well, right? But maybe you didn't see him so much, like, as in term, because the intro to Cliffs of Dover, he does that with hybrid picking, the arpeggio thing. But I think Brett is almost like Gambale in the sense, like he took hybrid picking to a completely new level.
Yeah, he was able to do all four.
Yeah, with the pinky as well. Like that's
really
crazy.
impressive.
But I think I thought about the hybrid picking because when you talked about making things easier for yourself and doing that, make it more reliable, 100% agree with that. And I think when it comes to hybrid picking, that's such a great technique because you can make, whatever you do in the legato stuff and you want to do fast string crossing, instead of trying to do it with the pick and try, it's hard to control dynamics, and it's very easy to do it once you get it with the hybrid picking stuff. And at some point people might be like, well, it's harder to do this, it's better. But I mean, guitar, you can make it so hard, you can make anything so hard, so what's the point? So just find whatever sounds good.
And that's really where the string skipping stuff started to come in at the end, midway through Racer X was we were almost trying to get rid of the sweeps because we felt that sweeps were hard to play in time.
Yeah.
Like slow tempo sweeps are not fun. They're real hard to play in time and even. So we tried to retrofit stuff with string skipping instead.
Yeah.
And I think, and maybe it's just because of the Racer X thing was so over the top and difficult, it wasn't a thing where I could just wake up in the morning and hey, let me just rip out Scarified right now for you.
Yeah.
I had to warm up to it. And so, nowadays it's I'm certainly not trying to avoid things that are somewhat difficult at times, but I do like things that are playable.
Yeah.
That you don't have to like, you know what I mean? Like, and there were some times on stage on the G3 where we did do some of the Racer X songs. We did Scarified and Scit Scat Wah. And I remember we were playing outdoors and it was 50 degrees. And trying to play Scarified with 50-degree weather was not like, I was terrified trying to do it. My hands were stiff. Like, wow, how am I going to get through this?
Yeah.
And the adrenaline sort of just helps you. But I remember it was certainly it was certainly nice to finish it.
yeah. Done. But is it like with songs like that though? I mean, I don't know how much you've listened to Dream Theater, but I could just remember seeing a song called "The Glass Prison," and it starts with this arpeggio section in it. And I just remember seeing some old footage of Mike Portnoy for whatever reason, just counting the song in, and it feels like it's 15 BPMs too fast. I could just imagine the terror in Petrucci, like, oh, great. Now I'm going to, how am I going to get through this thing? But when it comes to do they use click tracks and stuff like that when you play live with Racer X? Because I mean, there's some there's quite a big difference doing 16-note triplets at 140 compared to 130 or 135 or whatever.
There were some times where Scarified came on quick.
Yeah.
A couple videos of it where it's like, wow, how did I ever play that? It's quick. But no, we didn't use. I think we might have used click on the Gilbert tour, though. I think we didn't have in-ears, but Jeff, the drummer, was running.
But then you're fine, because then he's not going to start at some weird tempo. But another question, like Scarified versus Scit Scat Wah, do you find Scarified is much harder than?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Scit Scat Wah I can play. Can't say I can go have a barehanded snowball fight and play it, but I could. I could, if I'm warmed up enough. It's not hard to tackle that one. But Scarified has a lot of the reach, the stretchy stuff in it, which is difficult. And you either modify it or else you grin and bear it. But I don't play Scarified that much. It's unfortunate too, because that's one of the things people always want to hear.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, man, I feel like such a big disappointment that I can't play the song that that I'm semi.
Well, I mean, you can play most of it. I mean, I think gun to your head, you probably could play it, but it's not worth risking screwing up your hands again. It's like, well, what's the point? So I think that's but that's the thing, though. I mean, I Petrucci again, I kind of feel for the guy, because there's virtually nothing in their repertoire that's easy to play, right? So having to get out there, it's not like Pink Floyd that they can tour forever, and it's not going to be because the material is hard to play that it's going to be a bummer to do it. So I can imagine as well, if Razor X kept going, like you'd be asked to play that stuff forever. So
but I think the good thing is, once you start getting into that bigger venue thing, at least you have proper places to warm up and get ready. And I felt that was pretty interesting, because on the G3 I got to hear everybody's warm up proceed.
Okay, cool.
Everybody had the same thing too. It was like they were very repetitive with it. They did like Satch had a very structured warm up, and it would start at the exact moment Petrucci would hit the stage. The first downbeat, the click would come on. Click, 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 click. And you'd hear do 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 do, that 4-note that chord thing going up. And it was the same routine every night, and it was about an hour long. And he'd be talking during it, with everybody walking out of the dressing room. And then, he was always on when he went on stage, that's for sure.
I didn't realize that you were actually with Petrucci then, or he was Satriani, Petrucci, and Paul, like you guys.
Yeah, we were first, and then Petrucci, and then Satriani, and John was a really nice guy. I mean, that was with Portnoy too, and he was really nice too. You didn't see him around that much, they were mostly in their bus, but there's a couple times John let me play through his rig and like, hey, you want to try it out? I was like, of course. And it was just massive sound, just unbelievable. And I mean, once again, super super humbled by the fact that I even got to be part of it, and like be around such like great players. And
well, you are one, so I mean that's the thing. That's the thing, though. I think like if I was Petrucci, I would be like, Bruce Bouillet played through my rig.
Well, I got to play through Satch's too. It was real interesting. And I remember Satch's, the rig he was using then was those PV amps.
Yeah.
And of course in the ads they were all, this is how I get my tone. And I remember I was playing through his rig, and I look up at him, and he goes, yeah, I only use the clean tone. Because he uses the DS1 to get the actual distortions. And I remember him going like, yeah, I only use the clean channel. And,
well, you can technically say he uses the amp at least.
Yeah.
It's a white lie. But basically, I don't want to, kill your whole day here. So you've been really generous with your time, but your Patreon. Is
Oh,
there anything you
Patreon?
think?
Yes,
Yeah,
is
do you think people should know about it?
patreon.com, patreon.com/Bruce Bouillet.
It's
And
gonna be a link in the description, so you can just click away.
it's only got one tier. It's a $10 tier per
Mhm.
month, and you can come in and I've got it all set up now. Everything's embedded, so you can see it. Yeah, I add to it every month. I add a couple solos, and I add some new. I think this month I'm doing a lot of Dorian type stuff, and yeah, I'm going to try to start doing some live streaming with it pretty soon. It's been something everybody's sort of been requesting, so maybe do a Sunday, Saturday, just question and answer thing
Yeah.
about the on the site. And then I've got my YouTube channel that I've recently been posting all the Racer X rhythms on. So anybody that's interested in the old Racer X stuff, I'm doing probably about a 15 song run, and it'll be everything on Second Heat, and then all the stuff on the live albums that were, not studio songs that I was on.
No, it's really
So
good because I checked out the Sunlit Nights intro, and I've transcribed that before. Completely different position, because that it's not intuitive to do that thing to keep it on the A and D string, but it's like that's how you do it.
Isn't it neat though? Like, I remember some of those riffs as they were getting written, and Paul bringing in some stuff, and just thinking that is such the neatest sounding riff.
Yeah, it's so cool. Yeah. Love it.
And so like advanced for me. I thought these chords were so like, wow, these aren't bar chords anymore. Like, wow.
But that's the thing though with the rhythm guitar stuff, the ones you've covered as well, because there'd be some regular power chords, but then you get like the -7 chords a lot, and then you get the different dyads, and that adds such a dimension to the sound, and also like that the rush chord, the open A thing without the A sus2 thing, yeah.
There's another one that was real popular. It was sort of like if you had a D major triad with a C bass, that there was kind of like chords with bass notes that were different. Like, wow, we're doing grown-up chords in metal.
Yeah. But that sounds great with distortion as well, because it's a triad, so it's not gonna completely kill it. So that's
but the YouTube channel is obviously youtube.com/Bruce Bouillet official. So at Bruce Bouillet official. So cool, man. It's been a pleasure today, man. Great meeting you, and
same.
love your school and everything, and we'll have to do it again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, if there's anything you feel like we've missed or left out, or actually I've missed something this here and then. When you wrote Scit Scat Wah, was that like you just put it together both of you, or how did that come about?
Paul had the beginning riff, that little sort of string skipping, classical descending thing, and then I remember working on it with him down at Vernon. There's some video footage of us playing it too, just a little snippet of it. And the only thing there was some things I remember we used melodic minor on a thing, and I just thought like, wow, we're using melodic minor, and oddly enough, the solo section is really heavily dominant 7 type sounds and stuff. It's in F and E flat, and it's like, did we just intentionally make life difficult for ourselves by like having to solo these like really odd non-rock keys over non-rock chords, but
it really works.
It did, I think, and that was written right as that Scarified thing was going to come out in Guitar Player magazine, because we debuted it on one of the only out-of-town gigs we did, which was the Chicago NAMM.
Yeah.
And that's far enough back when that was the last NAMM they had in Chicago. And
of course it was.
And we played at the Ibanez booth. They'd made a soundproof booth, and the whole band went in there and performed, and it was, we must have ripped the hearing off of everybody in the first 4 rows of the place.
Well, I was really happy though that you actually have that on the live album, because I think it's such a cool. The first time I heard, I was like, what's going on? Because it's like, yeah, it's everything, and it's really cool. Oh yeah, the live album, your solo. I love Paul to death, and I love the picking stuff that he does. But your solo was it was more musical.
A little more structured.
Yeah, for
I had
sure.
built a solo for the occasion, and I think Paul just went out there and said, "I'm doing
No,
my
he
thing
did his
for an
thing.
hour."
Yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah.
but I do think like your blues mix with the shred stuff, that was quite that. I still haven't really heard anyone do it that way
Mhm.
to that level. I mean, I think Joe Tafoya did that Infra Blue record, was kind of in the same vein, but you were first either way. But it's like that the attitude, and you had like it's just great phrasing and really cool
Thanks.
licks.
I can say that I've had more people come up to me and say, "I learned the Mixolydian arpeggio from your live
Yeah.
solo. I never knew what Mixolydian was." And I think the reason is that I do a one
Play
four
four,
five,
yeah.
Mixolydians kind of, and so you can hear
Mhm.
you can hear the chord changes.
Yeah.
It's so yeah. Hey, if that's one of the things that I contributed, I'm happy for that, because at the end of the day, I feel that the whole Racer X thing did at least contribute to push things forward. We were
Oh,
one of
for
those
sure.
that showed up and let's move everything up another notch.
Yeah.
And,
But oh yeah, another thing that people need to check out, and I told you that on Instagram that I totally missed it. You did an instrumental album in 2014,
oh yeah,
like your
uh,
Order of Control.
order of control,
Yeah.
and it has whatchamacallit on drums, from Alice Cooper, Glenn Sobel
Oh,
on
nice.
drums, and it has Dave Foreman on bass and guitar. And he's the guy who was the kingpin touring musician that I was.
Okay, yeah.
I've really learned a lot from Dave, and I mean, he's played with everybody from J Lo to Rihanna to you know P Diddy to
Yeah.
Snoop Dogg to
I
I
bet
think
it
even
removed one of those names from the
yeah.
CV now. Like,
And
yeah.
I think he goes back. He actually even played on whatchamacallit, Tupac's album.
Oh
So
wow.
he was definitely in the R&B type thing,
Yeah.
and but man, did I learn a lot from that guy. And yeah, yeah. So he's on the album too. But it's a fun instrumental. It's on Mascot Records.
It's
And
super melodic, and I mean, I found it on Spotify. I'm sure it's available on Apple and everywhere.
it is,
It's
yeah,
highly recommended because super melodic, great tone, and it's you kind of don't know what's gonna come next in a way,
Mhm.
even with the melodies, because you go out, you don't go out of the key in a bad way.
Right.
You go to unexpected places basically.
Yeah, I used
And
some
I
pretty
find that,
wild chord changes.
yeah,
Yeah,
which is
and
really cool to hear. So yeah, that was but it's so weird that just totally passed me by.
it'll
Uh,
probably be on YouTube too. I've been working on my YouTube channel, and it's loaded up there. I just got to make it public,
yeah,
so if people want to check it out. It's sort of that's the way it is these days, I guess. Is
yeah,
listen to it and go stream it for whatever.
yeah,
But
exactly. You get three cents something.
yeah, so, but I put it up for free. People can come check it out and see.
Yeah,
I was quite happy with that one. I am long overdue for something new, and
yeah, for sure.
once I get past all these Racer X rhythms, I think my wife and I are about to move. So we're going to move Midwest, and once I get set up there, I'm probably going to go for a new
Yeah,
band or something. I need to play
yeah.
again.
So you live in Los Angeles now?
Las Vegas.
Las Vegas. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I
Uh,
did 30 years in LA, and then my wife and I moved here about 6 years ago. So
yeah. So
yeah,
how do you find Las Vegas? I
love
mean, now
Las
you're moving. Yeah, but
love Las Vegas. It's just a real expensive town to live in. As far as like just everything's more expensive here, and really I sort of told myself once I hit 60 that I wanted to kind of downsize the size of city I'm in.
Yeah.
So we're looking like about an hour outside of Nashville and at smaller cities. And
Yeah.
then we can commute in if, we need
Yeah,
Costco.
you're still close to also like a big music capital as well, and house prices must go like way down when you get to places
Half the
like that.
price. Yeah.
Yeah,
You get a lot for your money.
yeah. Because I mean,
But
yeah, I'm in Stockholm, Sweden, and his same thing here. It's like ridiculous money for just
yeah,
So, but Las Vegas, I just remember going there as I was studying at GIT, had a break, and then went there, and I didn't realize like, oh shit, people actually live here, because in my mind it was just this like big party town basically, and then you realize like people live here. It's like
you think the
actual
strip
community.
is Las Vegas only, but
Yeah,
we're in Summerlin, so it's way on the other side of the town. It's about 20 minutes out from the strip. So, and once again, I love it here. But the only thing about Vegas is that you're sort of an island in the middle of the desert.
yeah,
And when you get to the Midwest, you have all these cities that are next to each other that you can go play at if
yeah.
you've got a project. So, I really, that appeals to me a lot. And all my family lives back, in the
Well,
Midwest.
yeah,
So
that's the big
my
thing. I
family. So
think it doesn't Greg Howe live in Vegas as well, or lived in Vegas
Greg
for a while?
Snell's in Vegas. There's a lot of people live in
Yeah.
Vegas now. Steve Stevens is out
Oh wow.
here. Um, Corey Taylor, I think, from Slipknot
Hmm.
lives out here. Jason Hook, Five Finger Death Punch is out
Yep.
here. Or no, he's from Flat Black now. And
Yeah.
and then I don't know. There's a whole bunch of musicians out here. Just
Well, I guess it's close to LA and whatever, but you don't have to live in LA.
it is,
And
and it's a wonderful place to live. I mean, look,
yeah,
Las Vegas got everything you want, and
yeah,
everything. You may pay double for it, but
yeah.
they got
But you got it.
it.
So, well, thanks again, Bruce. This was amazing, and yeah, let's absolutely do it again whenever, because I think we you have done so much. There's so you only have time to like touch on certain things.
Well,
So
I'll have to put out a new album, then I'll have to try to reunite with Paul at some point, and then we'll have a lot to talk
yeah,
about.
amazing. Oh, but on that no, do you still keep? That's another question from my community. Do you still keep in touch, all of you, or is it like sporadic?
In a subtle way,
Yeah,
everybody's busy. It's like every now and then you'll see somebody comment on something you post, and it's
yeah,
funny. And
yeah. I
every
saw
now and
Paul post something about like, oh, is that the original drums when you put up? Yeah, it's like
Yeah, every now and then you'll get a cynical one from Scott somewhere out there on the road, and I still stay in touch with Juan.
yeah.
He's moved up to the Bay Area now, and
How's he doing, by the way? Is he better or?
he's doing very good.
Yeah,
I think like everybody else, everybody was, it's best I can call it is almost like a miracle because
yeah,
from where he was to where he was able to be now, where he can function as a human again, where
yeah,
before you're seeing somebody with a bunch of tubes down their throat,
yeah,
strapped to a bed. It's not a good sight. So I mean, we were all so relieved that he's back, and
yeah,
so I keep in touch with him still, and he still
yeah,
plays. He posts every day, and so yeah, and Jeff, I still see Jeff out on social media now and then,
yeah.
and he's up in Tahoe doing his thing. So everybody's still playing and busy, so it's still good. Everybody's still here.
Yeah, well, that's the main thing, right?
That's
Well,
right.
I'm not gonna keep you, but thank you so much again, and let's do this again sometime. All right?
Cool, man. And for
Thank-
everybody in the community there,
Yep.
hey, and thanks for the questions.
Thanks, man.